Namaskar. Welcome to this second session of the 12th Adhyaya of Sri Bhagavad Gita. We start with our gratitude towards the Lord, with whose grace everything is possible. We pray to this Guru Shishya Parampara, with whose grace this knowledge is preserved, protected and passed on for generations. I pay my respects to my Guruji, Pujya Guruma, with whose grace I am able to learn the scriptures and share this understanding with you. We start with a prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Punaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the 12th Adhyaya started with Arjuna's question. His question was that as Bhagavan spoke to him in the 11th Adhyaya, showed him his Vishwarupa Darshana, and finally in the last two shlokas talked about how he cannot be attained by Veda, Abhyasa, Tapa, Dana, but he can only be attained by Ananya Bhakti. And he then showed in the last shloka, the 55th shloka of the 11th Adhyaya, showed the 5 steps of sadhana, Mat Karma Paramo Bhava, Mat Bhaktaha, Mat Paraha. And according to this, Arjuna felt that this is the Saguna Upasana. As he has mentioned, he says, Ye Bhakta Satata Yukta, those devotees who are constantly connected with the Saguna form of the Lord and are fully involved in the devotion of the Lord. And the other ones are those who are devoted to the Avyakta Akshara Swarupa of the Lord, the Nirguna Nirakara Brahma Swarupa, who are also called the Nirguna Upasaka. So out of these two, the Saguna Upasakas and the Nirguna Upasakas, Arjuna asks, who is Yoga Vittama? Who is the real knower of Yoga? Yoga here means Upaya, the path. There are two paths. Arjuna thinks that there is a Saguna mark towards Bhakti and there is a Nirguna mark towards Bhakti. Which one is a better mark? Which one he should follow? This is a question which arises from the doubt of Arjuna. And Bhagavan replies, saying that Maya Veshya Mano Yema, one who keeps his mind in me, Nitya Yukta Upasate, and constantly devoted me with utmost unflinching faith, unwavering faith, Paraya Shraddhaya Upetaha. That person is a Yukta Tama, according to Bhagavan's Mata. According to his opinion, Bhagavan says he is the Yukta Tama, he is the most suitable yogi. So Bhagavan doesn't say that this one is better than this. What he says is that the Saguna Bhakti is a more safer, more suitable alternative. Nirguna Bhakti, again in the next shloka, is going to say that, it is the Adhikatara Klesha, it is more difficult because it is formless. We don't have an Alambana, no support. And that's why very few people are eligible to go directly to Nirguna Bhakti. For most people, it is better to go through the Saguna Bhakti, and then once we connect to the Lord, then we can go into Nirguna Bhakti. So that is the answer of Bhagavan. So 12th Adhyaya is the Bhakti Yoga, which consists of 20 shlokas which are devoted to the devotion. And for devotion, we have two main mukhya sadhanas. One is the mind, which is all filled with all the emotions, and this is one of the way we can connect to the divine. The second is the buddhi, our decision-making power, which helps us to choose the correct path. Which one is the better path? We have to, according to the thoughts and the desires, we have the vichara, manthana, and then we take the correct decision. But faith is a very, very important step on bhakti. Whether it is Saguna Bhakti or Nirguna Bhakti, faith, Shraddha is the first step. And bhakti is essential for all, even for Karma Yogi who are on the Karma Marga, for the devotees, Bhakta, for them this is the Pradhan, Sahayaka Sadhana. But finally it is the Gnana Marg which is important, even for the Gnana Marg Upasakas, the Nirguna or the Nivrutti Parayana Upasakas, for them also Bhakti is essential to connect to the divine. So Bhakti is essential for all types of seekers. And then Bhagavan tells Arjuna that where you have to start your Saguna Upasana. He describes all the steps, and today we are going to see all these steps of Saguna Upasana. Yetu Sarvani Karmani, Mai Sanyasya Matparaha, Ananye Naiva Yogena Mam Dhyayanta Upasate. In the last shloka of the first session, we saw that how Bhagavan talks to Arjuna and tells him that Sarguna Bhakti, you do it and start from your karma. Karma is the first step because most of us are so engrossed in our karmas, our actions, and the best way to start our devotion to the Lord is through these karmas. So Bhagavan tells Arjuna that surrender to me. Mai sarvani karmani, all your actions. Sanyasya, mai sanyasya, surrender to me. And mat paraha means take refuge in me, be surrendered to me. That is what Bhagavan tells him, and says Ananya eva yogena, Ananya yoga, one-pointed commitment, devotion. Mam dhyayanta, you contemplate on me, think about me, chintana karo, mera dhyan karo, and upasana karo. Upasana means devotion or worship. So this is what Bhagavan tells Arjuna. And then he says, in the next shloka, he says, Tesham aham samudharta. For those kind of devotees, I deliver them from this sansara cycle of the sansara chakra, and I give them moksha, freedom. And let's look at the 7th shloka. Teshamaham samudharta mrityu sansara sagara bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. So Bhagavan says that what he does for the devotees, for his devotees, what are the benefits that he gives, because this is what we always think as a human being, that if I'm doing something for the others, what will the other person do for me? And Bhagavan says, Mai aveshita chetasa, for those whose mind is completely into me, for those kind of devotees, जो पहले बताया, he says ananya yogena, those who are completely devoted to me, mam dhyayanta upasate, those who are always involved in my devotion, for them tesham aham samudharta bhavami, I deliver them, I free them from where? He says mrityu sansara sagara. So sansara is our the life, this jagata, this sansara chakra as we call it, and Bhagavan tells 2 words to describe the sansara. He says mrityu rupa sansara, and sagara, like sagar. Sansara is like a sagar, and these are very commonly used words when used to sansara sagara. Sagar means ocean. It's an ocean of life and death. And Bhagavan says nachirat partha, oh Arjun, instantly. Nachirat means doesn't take time. Immediately I give them this, I deliver them from this sansara sagar. And Bhagavan gives more than 1000 times that what devotee gives, because Bhagavan is very, very karunamaya, very dayalu. Daya is he has a lot of compassion on the humans. And let us understand what it means by Tesham Aham Samudharta, how, for whom. First we have to understand that this Bhagavan says only for the people who are involved in intense devotion, one-pointed commitment, ananya, yoga, and upasana. So it's a commitment. And then for these kind of devotees, Bhagavan gives them the best gift that is most beneficial, which is the kalyanakari, hitakari, shreya, the highest fruit that God can give to human beings. What is the prayojan of the human life actually? And what does he give? He says, he samudharta from mrityu sansara sagara, the ocean of life and death. Let us understand what is sansara first. Sansara word comes from samsarati. Samsarati means it keeps sliding, it keeps changing, and it keeps destroying, it keeps completely, from the day we are born, we keep changing. And this is the nature of the sansara. And from one life, it goes towards death, destruction, and then there is another life. So this cycle keeps on, the life, death cycle keeps on changing. So this is what is called as a sansara. And Bhagavan says it's a mrityu rupa sansara, because death is an inevitable part of life. It is 2 sides of the same coin, and it is very unpredictable. We cannot decide when our body will come to an end. So it is a very unpredictable, this life. And then what kind of next life we are going to have also, it's not up to us. We are helpless in deciding all this. It is all according to the laws of the nature, the laws of karma, the laws of the Lord, which govern this. And this cycle is something that we keep coming back again and again. And this sansara is also called sansara sagara, ocean. So sagara word comes from the sons of Sagara. Raja Sagara was the person whose 1,000 sons, they dug up the Prithvi to search for the ocean, and they found the water, and that is how. But the Gar word means poison, because Sagara's the Sagara's wife, who did not have children, who drank poison, but then even then she delivered 1,000 sons. So Gar word comes from that poison, because and it is a very difficult to cross on our own. We know that how ocean is very vast. It is very difficult to cross. We need help from someone, from either some ship or something. We need help to cross this. We cannot just swim across the ocean, and that's why this it is described like a samsara, where we need help, like the help of a guru or a Bhagavan to cross this samsara sagar. So I must try my best to cross this ocean. It's not that only God is going to aham samuddarta, doesn't mean that only Bhagavan is going to deliver us. We have to make a lot of efforts to do the sadhana, to purify ourselves, to connect to the Lord, and only then Lord can rescue us from this cycle of helplessness, birth, death, all the time. So Bhagavan says, for whom Mai Avishta Chetasam, for those whose mind is unto me. On the second shloka it says, Mai Aveshya Manoye Mam, those who place their mind in me. It's all similar. So Bhagavan wants that devotee's mind should be filled with the Lord, and he sets very high standards. And he says, Mai Eva Aveshya, means only with him. And this we have seen in several devotees like Gopi, Radha, Meera, Narsi. All these people had their mind only filled with the Lord's name, Lord's Leela, His Charitra, His character, His, all His thoughts all the time. And for the devotee, it's only worth to have God in the mind. To have other thoughts like, of the objects or the worldly objects is like putting in some dirt inside their mind. That is the understanding of a devotee, an utmost devotee. And sansara, mrityu rupa sansara, because fear of death is the highest fear, and only God can save us from this, because that is what Bhagavan is telling us. And how we can do this? By knowing the Swarupa of the Lord. Either it could be the Saguna Swarupa or the Nirguna Swarupa, but this is ultimately the goal, the truth behind life. And God expects that we must at least desire some kind of jignasa, intense desire to become free. And we must also try our best for those people. Bhagavan, he says that Tesham Aham Samuddarta. So Samuddarta, Uddhara, means upliftment, betterment. Uddhara, it's Uddhatu, which means going up, by bringing up. So how does God do this? Is this His grace that He bestows on us? Or does He have some magical powers so that He helps these devotees? But our Shastras, all our scriptures, with one voice tell us that it's only by knowledge, Gnanat Moksham, Kaivalam, and only by Gnana we can achieve the moksha or freedom is possible. There is no other way. It's not that directly a karmi or a bhakta, karma yogi or a bhakta can become a gnani or can develop moksha. So Bhagavan, what he does is that it ignites knowledge in the minds of the devotee, gnana, because the climax of devotion, bhakti, it's the ekatva with the Lord. That is the knowledge that the Jiva and the Ishvara are one. And this is what Bhagavan does for his bhakta. And this is the message of the Upanishads as well as the message of the Gita, because Gita ji is the crux of the Upanishads, and there is a similarity of the message in all these scriptures, all these texts. Say for example, if we can give an example, we can say I love pizza. But that does not mean that I love pizza itself. I love eating pizza. So when we say I love pizza, it means that I love eating pizza. Similarly, when Bhagavan says that I uplift them, samuddarta eshamaham samuddarta, it means that I deliver them by igniting knowledge in them. I ignite the knowledge in them, gnana. And only with this, in the 11th Adhyaya also, Bhagavan said that for these kind of devotees, Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, I'll give them the Buddhi Yoga through which they will be able to attain me. And the 10th Adhyaya, in the Vibhuti Yoga, he also said that Jnana Deepena Bhasvataha, for such devotees, I ignite the knowledge, the fire of knowledge in them, and that is how they will attain me. So this is the, the link between bhakti and moksha. There is always this gnana that comes in between the bhakti and the moksha. For all kinds of sadhana, ultimately it's the gnana which is the final sadhana which can lead to the freedom or the moksha. Mayyeva mana adhatsva, mayi buddhim niveshaya, nivasishyasi mayyeva, ata urdhvam na sanshayah. So from now onwards, for the next 5 shlokas, Lord shows us some important steps in the sadhana, the saguna, In the first, this 8th shloka, he tells us the first target, which is the final goal. And this is how his method is. In the second adhyaya also, when he started the Updesha, in the 11th shloka of the second adhyaya, he showed what is the ultimate understanding, what is Atma, what is the Atma Anatma Viveka. Here also he shows what is the climax of the Saguna Bhakti. Here the Bhakti is the subject matter. And he says, Mai eva mana atatsva. Give me your mind. And he says, Mai buddhim niveshaya. Place your intellect, your buddhi unto me. He says, Nivasishyasi mai eva. So you shall live in me only. And ata urdhvam na sanshaya. There is no doubt about this. So let us understand this shloka in more details. Mai eva mana atatsva, mai buddhim niveshaya. When Bhagavan says, give me your mind and intellect, what does he mean? It sounds very easy, but it's very difficult to achieve in life, because Bhagavan wants everything. He wants all the mind, all the time, continuously, satatam, nirantara, and the intellect both. And let us understand how is this possible. When he says this, it should be possible. And that's why it is called as, Saguna Bhakti is also not very easy. It is Adhika Klesha. But the Nirguna Bhakti, what Bhagavan himself said, is that it is Adhika Tara Klesha. It's even more difficult. So let us understand that we have 3 types of personalities. One is our physical body, the gross body, which is seen, Stula Sharira. And we generally tend to give it a lot of importance because it is seen. But our Shastras say that yes, it is important, but it's not that important. More important is our Sukshma Sharira, our emotional personality, which is made up of with our mind, our thoughts, our desires, our emotions. And this is more important because this is what controls the body. And that's why the mind is something that we need to cultivate. We need to, mature the mind, and the entire sadhana is for this part. The third part of our personality is our intellectual personality, which is made up of our buddhi, which is the seat of our decision making. And this is also very, very important because it will help us to guide our path. It will show us the way, and that is where we will go with our body. So mind and intellect are actually govern our life and make us a very important part of our personality. What we are is because of our mind and intellect, not just because of our body, because mind and intellect are the masters and the body is the slave. It will tell us where we want to go in our life. But the problem is that mind and this buddhi, they are constantly at war with each other. And this kind of an internal war is something which is considered to be like a Mahabharata Yuddha between the Kaurava and the Pandavas. Right from the time that we wake up in the morning, always buddhi tells us, yes, you should get up and get out of bed. It's morning. This is the best time for you to do some swadhyaya, meditation, whatever you want to do, exercise. But the mana always wants to lie down in bed for some more time. And the yuddha starts from this time. So every time there is something that buddhi wants to do. When mana wants to eat something, buddhi will say, no, this is not good for you. You should not do this. Mana wants to do something, go to a place, meet some people. Buddhi says, no, this is not essential at this time. So this kind of competition, war is constantly in our mind. And this gap between what mind wants to do and what intellect wants us to do, that determines our personality. Essentially, the lesser the gap, the more matured we are. The wider the gap, the more disarrayed, more disturbed we are at mind, because then they are both at loggerheads with each other. And the entire spiritual journey is to lessen this distance between the mind and the body so that they become one. And when the mind and the intellect and the body, they are all one, this is called the Yukta personality. And this Yukta is the integrated personality where body, mind and intellect are one. Mana, vachan or karma becomes one. And that is the guna of a sadhaka, a santa or a sadhu purusha. So this is the Yukta personality, which Lord himself talks about quite a lot of times in the Gita Ji. And this is what is our goal. This is what we need to achieve. And Bhagavan says, Mai eva mana adatsva. Put your mind only in me. And that shows the commitment, the priority that we should have. He shows us the goal, the lakshya, what is necessary, what he expects from us. And we know that our mind is full of desires, emotions, and a lot of thoughts. And all of our thoughts and emotions, Bhagavan wants that we should relate to the Lord rather than relating anywhere else in this world. All our desires must be related to Him. All our vrittis that arise should be for Him. And it's a very, very high standard, a very ideal standard, which looks like very difficult to attain. How can we do that? How is it possible? So devotion essentially means connecting with the Lord, with faith in the Lord, and it does not mean that we break away from this world, because this world is something that we are living. It's it appears to us like a reality, and this is not that we have to break all our relations, all our thoughts, all our desires, all our achievements, all our ambitions. We don't need to break everything. What we need to do is, while we continue to do our duties in the best possible way, kartavya karma, according to righteousness, right action, according to dharma, and along with this, we take Lord's name all the time. Nama Smarana may continue, so that these karmas become connected with the Lord. And this connection with the Lord must be done for, it's not just for some time we can do it. Bhagavan wants that we should do it all the time with a lot of patience and with a lot of enthusiasm. We should continue doing it. That is what Bhagavan means by saying that mana eva adatsva. So mind and intellect is essentially our identity. And when Bhagavan says mayeva mana adatsva mai buddhim nivashya, he says, give me your mind and intellect. Essentially, he's telling us that you lose your identity completely. And for us, it will be a big loss. It will be almost like our death if we lose our mind and intellect, because that forms a very essential part of our personality. But giving our mind and intellect, putting it into the Lord, mind and intellect, of course, are not gross things like we can put it up and put it in Lord. They are sukshma. They are more subtle. And what Bhagavan tries to tell us is that we should have, all the time the thoughts, desires about Him, and all our decisions must be taken by putting Him as a centerpiece. So merging with the Lord's identity is something that will happen if we merge our own identity. So it is not a loss. We are not at a loss that we are losing our identity, but we are actually gaining by putting our identity into the Lord's identity, meaning that our individual consciousness, we are merging with the universal consciousness. That is what Lord is trying to tell us. So the two biggest obstacles on our path, one, according to our Shastra, is the attachments, our mamatva to all the people who are close to us, our mamatva with our own body, our own mind, our own, sukshma sharira. And the second attachment, the second obstacle on our path is our pride, our ego, our feeling of our ownership, which is governed by our buddhi, our intellect. Whereas the attachment is the function of the mind. So mind and intellect also produces two biggest obstacles on the path of a sadhaka or a seeker, and these are the attachments and the ego. And what Lord is trying to tell us is that you let go of your attachments, let go of your pride, ego, and transfer all your attachments and ego from all the worldly attachments, afflictions towards the Lord. That is what Bhagavan is trying to tell us. So my buddhim niveshaya, put your intellect in me, also means that a lot of our pain, miseries are due to our pride, our ego of, I'm the doer, why people are not appreciating, why they are not encouraging me, nobody takes care of what I'm doing so much. So all these, our pride, and this is the stula pride, and there's a lot of sukshma pride, even pride of having our own knowledge, our qualifications, our profession, our role as a leader, our, being nice to people, all this carries a lot of pride. And this sukshma pride also helps us, deters us from our progress. And this pride, according to our Shastras, is the mithya abhimana. It is our false identification with our body-mind complex, which produces this mithya abhimana, which produces a lot of our pain and miseries in life. But we need to understand that He is the doer. Bhagavan is the doer. He is the one with whose energies I am doing everything. I am just an instrument. Bhagavan Himself has told us in the 11th Adhyaya that be like a nimitta matram bhava Arjuna. Be like an instrument, do your work. He is the doer. He has done already everything and He is doing it. And the worldly intelligence that we have, we have a lot of pride about our own intelligence, our own aptitude, our own efficiency, our own success, achievements in our worldly life, fame, name, money, everything, wealth. But this does not work in spirituality. In spirituality, the kind of intelligence that is needed is very different. It is a pure and a subtle intelligence, Shuddha or Sattvic or Sukshma intelligence chahiye. You don't need very high intelligence quotients in spirituality. Actually, it may be a deterrent on this path of spirituality, because the more qualified, the more well-read, the more, a rational and more thinking person we are, the more is our pride, our ego, and this is a kind of a biggest obstacle on our path. And that's why it is seen very commonly that people who are highly educated, they are not able to go towards spirituality, but people who are not less educated, they can understand these concepts much better, because these are more natural laws which Bhagwan is talking about. So this is essentially a place where we have to do a lot of thinking, vichara, and we have to think of our goals, means how we can achieve these goals, the sadhya, the sadhana. Where am I at the moment? What is my next step? What are the sadhanas which are suitable for me? How do I go on this sadhana? I have to think that how I give more time to this spiritual attainment without compromising my worldly duties, and how can I plan my life so that gradually I can increase my spiritual understanding, read more scriptures, understand this more. What are the obstacles on this path? How can I overcome these obstacles? And also I need to think of how I can do the best of the right actions with the right attitude, which is called karma yoga, and how can I do this in the best possible way. So a lot of thinking goes on in this marga, on this path, where this is a path of understanding, where a lot of understanding, thinking, vichara, viveka, and self-inquiry is something that is needed. And also I need to think how I can see the grace of the Lord all the time in my life. Whenever something good happens, whenever I'm able to do whatever I wanted to do, I achieve anything, I must see His grace, that He's allowing me. He's allowing me. I'm the instrument in this, and He's letting me do all this and get all the credit. So what is the benefit? What is the phala of this Mai Buddhim Niveshaya Mayeva Mana Adatswa? Bhagavan says, Nivasishyasi Mayeva, you shall stay in me, you shall attain me. So when mind and intellect are gone, our personality is gone, our identification is gone, what happens is that the Jeev and Ishvara becomes one. And that is what God is telling us. Just like rivers meet the ocean, they lose their identity, but they become part of the ocean. They don't have any ranja, or that they don't have any, of losing their identity, they don't feel anything bad about losing their identity, because they can enjoy this vastness of the ocean. Actually, Lord is the final destination for all of us. It's only the question that we don't know this. And the main difference, according to our scriptures, is in between knowing, that we are one with this universal consciousness, this oneness. And this is only with ignorance or with ajnana. I feel that I'm limited, I'm just this much, I'm bonded. But with that jnana, I am unlimited, I am the free Brahma. And this is what we need to achieve. Bhagavan says, Ata urdhvam na sanshaya, there is no doubt about it. Bhagavan did not say that when he says something, there is no doubt about it in any case. But he knows, he understands that the human nature is such that it keeps doubting whether it is possible. If I put my mind and intellect into the Lord, Bhagavan says that I'll attain Him. How is it possible? We'll keep doubting. It's our nature to doubt. But Bhagavan says, have faith in the system, in the Lord, what Bhagavan is telling us. Next shloka. Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mai sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mamichhaptum dhananjaya. So Arjuna must have thought that is Bhagavan, this looks like a very strong ideal, how to put my mind and intellect into you completely all the time, always. Looks like very difficult. Please show me some better, easier solution. So Bhagavan tells him, if you are not capable of controlling your mind, putting it into me, steadying it into me, then abhyasa yogena tata. Then use this second, Bhagavan is showing a second upaya. Repeated practice, abhyasa, repeated practice and study. Abhyasa yoga is saying here. Mam ichhaptum dhananjaya, desire to attain me, O Arjuna. So abhyasa yoga, let us understand this. The first goal that Bhagavan mentioned is Mayeva manadatsva mai buddhim niveshaya. Mind and intellect surrender to me. If you are not able to do this, not capable, then achieve perfection by abhyasa yoga. Repeated practice of doing the same thing and connecting this way to the Lord. Whenever our mind goes outside somewhere in the worldly objects, hold it, bring it back to the Lord. This is what Bhagavana has said in the 6th Adhyaya, Atma Sanyama Yoga also. And here he's talking about Abhyasa Yoga, is the Ashtanga Yoga. and is talking about the Saguna, the Upasana. And Ashtanga Yoga is the one which inculcates a kind of discipline into us, so that it starts with the Yama, Niyama, and then Pranayama, Asana and Pranayama, then Pratyahara, concentration, and then Dhyana, Samadhi. So all this is the eighth type of eightfold yoga, which helps us to concentrate, discipline our mind. The Abhyasa Yoga has been defined by various devotional sects also. The Bhakti Sampradaya, differently in the Vallabha Acharya, Navada Bhakti is considered to be the Abhyasa Yoga, as shown in Bhagavata. Ramanujacharya ji says that to contemplate on the Guna, the attributes of the Lord, the Guna Chintana of the Lord is Abhyasa Yoga. Bhashyakar Shankaracharya ji says to gather our mind from everywhere and to keep steady our mind in the Lord, which is called Chitta Ekagrata, is Abhyasa. Veda Vyasji says Chitta Vritti Nirodha in the Yoga. Vashishta Chitta Vritti Nirodha Prayatna is Abhyasa. That means cultivating the mind in the right direction with adequate efforts, with full involvement of the mind, with a lot of courage, enthusiasm, and intense desire to achieve. This is the Abhyasa. So, in any case, let us just look at the Navada Bhakti, the 9 types of devotion, which has been mentioned by Prahlada in the Bhagavata. The first type is the Shravanam, listening to the Katha, the character, Leela, Guna, Chintana of the Lord. And the Parikshit Raja, who listened to Bhagavat from Shukdevji, is considered to be the ideal in Shravanam. Smaranam means contemplating on the Lord's name and His grace, thinking about Him all the time. And Prahlada is considered to be the ideal because he used to take His name all the time in all the difficulties or adversities of his life. The third is Kirtanam. Kirtanam has 2 meanings. One is Vadanam, that is to speak. And Shukdevji Maharaj, when he gives Katha of Bhagavat to Parikshit Raja, is considered to be an ideal. Whereas the second meaning, more commonly used meaning of Kirtanam, is singing devotional songs for the Lord. And Naradaji, who always sings in the glory of the Lord, is considered to be the ideal for this. Pada Sevanam is the 4th type of bhakti, which is serving the feet of the Lord. And Lakshmiji is considered to be an ideal because when Lord is in the Ananta Shayana, then Lakshmiji is always at the feet of the Lord in the service of the Lord. Archanam, offerings to the Lord in form of some puja, archana, some flowers, and King Pruthu, who is involved in this all the time, is considered to be an ideal. Vandanam is to pray and prostrate repeatedly. And Akrur, when he went to Vrindavana, he saw the Padachinna, the Lord's feet, the Chinna, and he kept on praying and prostrating, could not reach Vrindavana. He got delayed in reaching Vrindavana. He is considered to be an ideal. Dasya Bhava, to serve Lord as a servant. Hanumanji is the ideal for this because he had no other desire but to serve his Lord as a servant. Sakya Bhava, or devoting as a friend to the Lord. Arjuna is an ideal for this. And Atma Nivedanam, surrendering to the Lord everything. King Bali is considered to be the ideal when in 2 steps Bhagavana took over all the lokas. The 3rd step, Bali, he asked the Lord to put it on his head so that he could surrender to the Lord, and so he's considered to be the ideal. The next shloka. Abhyasepya samarthosi matkarma paramo bhava madarthamapi karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. So in this shloka, Bhagavan shows Arjuna the 3rd alternative. He says, if you are not capable of even doing abhyasa, repeated study, practice, then he says the next option is that you do matkarma parama, perform all your actions for me. Madartham api karmani, you do all your actions for my sake, for madartha. Api kurvan siddhima vapsyasi, means you shall reach your goals very soon. You can become one with me. Matkarma parama bhava, let us understand this more in details, what it means performing all the actions for the Lord. It essentially is karma yoga, the updesh of karma yoga, changing our attitude towards our action. From karma, what we are doing as a karmatha, keep on doing work all the time, all through the day. We have to do the right karma, the right actions with the right attitude, which is very important, and that then only this karma will develop the karma yoga. And we have seen this several times before in the previous adhyayas, second, third, fourth adhyaya. What is karma yoga? Instead of selfish actions for worldly gains, do it for the Lord. We do a lot of selfless action, which are called nishkama karma. We do from, from alasa, we do karma. We do karma in the dharma, according to our dharma. And we do all these actions along with praying with the Lord, with the Ishwararpana Bhavana, remembering the Lord, Samarpana to the Lord. So that means that bhakti. We try to see the Lord's energies and His grace in all our actions. So that is the Ishwararpana Bhavana. And doing karma with the understanding that I am the doer, but I am the instrument of the Lord, and I am the Nimitta Bhava with the Nimitta Matra Bhava. And this will liberate us from all our raga, dvesha, all our bondage of karma, because that is the the sahaja prakriti of the karma, to bind by doing raga, dvesha, which remains in our mind. But if we liberate, if we do the karma with the karma yoga bhavana, the raga, dvesha will get neutralized and our mind will become pure, will become purified, and then only it will become eligible to obtain this Atma Jnana and to become one with the Lord. So Antakarana Shuddhi is the ultimate goal of karma yoga. In action, in karma, we can see the Lord in three ways. Bhagavan has already said that in Saguna Upasana, because in the 11th Adhyaya he is described the Vishwarupa. He is trying to tell us here that we should think of the cosmic form, the Vishwarupa, and visualize the Lord everywhere in the creation. But if this is not possible, because if our Antakarana is not so pure, Shuddha, then we can see Lord in all the beings, all the Jiva, and we can become nice, gentle, compassionate to all the beings. But even this is very difficult, to see the Lord in all the Jivas. And the third step, Lord is telling us that to see the God in at least one idol, from where we can remember Him in His form, have gratitude for the Lord while we are in action. And we should also find time to do some actions related to Bhagwan, Bhagavad related karma, like japa, seva, puja, reading, listening about the scriptures. And this helps us to overcome our pride and feel at peace. The next shloka. Athaitadapya shaktosi kartum madhyogam sarva karma phala tyagam tatah kuruyatatmavan. So Bhagavan is showing here the fourth alternative. Even if you are not able to do this, if you are not able to capable of doing this, what he has said here earlier, karma, surrender in all the actions. He says, then the next step is kartum madhyoga ashrita, for attainment or surrender to me. The next step is sarva karma phala tyagam. Then renounce all the fruits of the actions of the karma, and tatah kuru yatatmavan, by controlling your mind, ho kuru, renounce all the fruits of action. Bhagavan is telling us sarva karma phala tyagam. What does Bhagavan mean by this? He says, and really let us understand this. Is it really possible? How is it possible to renounce all the desires for all the fruits of all our actions? Whatever actions we do, we always have some desire in our mind to reach this, and that's why we do these actions. And in life we do a lot of actions, for all our nitya karma, for our routine karmas, for our daily duties. But how is it possible to leave all the desires? So here the Acharya has explained to us that it means that we can definitely desire, because without desire we don't get into any actions. And that's why it is fine, it is okay to desire for the fruits of the actions. It is very natural to desire. Without a desire we don't start any action. So it's fine to plan the activities, to have a kind of a rational desire, and to start the actions or the karma. But the difference is that we should not have an invalid insistence or obstinacy. We should not become obstinate for the result, that nahi mere ko yehi chahiye, yehi result milna chahiye, this is what I want. That kind of jid or duragra, that is something which should be avoided, because this creates a problem. Karma is definitely, we must understand that it is under my choice. Bhagavan has already said that karmanyeva adhikaraste, it is my right. I have the right to do the duty, to do karma in particular way. It is under my department, it is under my control to do karma. So this is something which is very clearly described earlier. But karma phala, on the other hand, the results that I am going to get of my actions, this is not something of my choice. It is not something my right to determine what I should get all the time. Yes, I may desire for it, but I may not get what I desire all the time. This is not my department. This is not my control. And this we should clearly understand, that this is the desire, this is the department of the Lord. I do the actions with the nimitta bhava, and He is the giver of the fruits. He is the karma phala data. Ishvara is also called the karma phala data, because according to His law of karma phala that He has designed, I'm going to get the fruits of the action, maybe better or lesser than what I desire. But whatever I get, whatever I ultimately get, I should accept it gracefully, without raga, dvesha, the svikara buddhi, with complete acceptance. And this buddhi is called prasada buddhi. Just like we accept prasada from the Lord, from the temple when we go, similarly we should accept. We don't question, we don't complain. Only we should have a lot of faith in the system, in the law of this, the natural laws, the laws governed, the law of the karma phala, which are made and designed by Ishvara. So to summarize the steps of spiritual journey so far, for a sattva guni whose antakarana is pure, shuddha, he does upasana, which is a mansik type of a karma. It is a mental karma. It is not a physical karma. And the highest form, Bhagavan says, which is the nirguna upasana, the formless devotion, which is also called arupa upasana, because it is the devotion of the unmanifest, but it is the adhikatara klesha. So the second choice, he says, is saguna upasana of the cosmic form, the Vishwarupa upasana, which is aneka rupa upasana, because Bhagavan manifests in this world in many different forms. So you can see right from the karya, for whatever karya, we can see the karana is the Lord, who is the nimitta and the upadana karana, and we can put all our mana buddhi into this, and we can become one with the Lord in His cosmic form. And this is the samadhi avastha, the final climax stage, where we become one with the Lord. So this is the Vishwarupa upasana. Then he says, if you're not able to do this, then we can do Abhyasa Yoga, the repeated practice of devotion in one form, Ekarupa Upasana, or in Ashtanga Yoga Upasana, or some kind of a idol worship, where we can do repeated practice of one form of devotion. But for many of the people who are not so Sattva Guni, who are Rajoguni means they are more suitable for actions, and they are very attached to activity and karma in the world. They are not able to leave this karma. So for them, the next steps Bhagavan shows is Karma Yoga, which are physical actions. But physical actions done with the right mental attitude, only then it becomes the Karma Yoga. And the fourth choice he said gave us was Ishwararpana Karma, which is also part of Karma Yoga, where we need to understand, surrender all our actions to the Lord, that I am the instrument, nimitta matra, selfless actions for devotion and worship. And finally he showed us that if we cannot do all this, then at least we do karma phala tyaga, renounce the fruits of action, with the understanding that I am the person who is the doer. Karma is my department, but karma phala is not my department. That is the department of the Lord. If we understand this clearly. Also, the other way to summarize this for the devotee is that the Jnana Yoga is the first step, which has the Adhiktara Klesha, most difficult. Samadhi Yoga, the cosmic form, Vishwarupa Upasana, is the Adhika Klesha. Abhyasa Yoga is also more difficult, Saklesha, but it is a little less difficult than the previous one. The Bhagavata Arpana, Karma Yoga, Ishwararpana, Alpa Klesha, little more difficult. And Karma Phala Tyaga, Samanya Klesha, it is a little difficulty. So from this, it appears that the Karma Phala Tyaga appears to be the least difficult of this, what Bhagavan has said so far, describing from the 1 to the 5 with the degree of difficulties. But it is not like that, because the choice of the sadhana that we take to accept, to reach to the divinity, to attain the divinity, depends on our suitability, our capability, what is our nature, what is our liking, our inclination. So that means it is our adhikaritva that determines our sadhana. Does not mean that karma phala tyaga is the easiest to start with, or it may be the best. So Bhagavan himself clarifies this in the next shloka. He says that Shreyo hi gnanam abhyasat gnanat dhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karma phala tyagah tyagat shantiranantaram. So here Lord Krishna praises karma phala tyaga, renunciation of the fruits of action, and he shows the superiority, the shrestata of the karma phala tyaga. It's not that it is the least important. He says it is also very important. Shreyo hi gnanam abhyasa. He says knowledge is superior to repeated practice, Gnana is better than Abhyasa. It essentially means that Abhyasa, doing without any understanding, knowledge is superior to this. Gnana Dhyanam Visishyate. Meditation is superior to knowledge. Then the next he says Dhyanat Karma Phala Tyaga. Renunciation of the fruits of action, Karma Phala Tyaga, is superior to Dhyan, that is meditation or contemplation. Why? He says because Tyagat Shanti Anantaram. Because Tyag से तुरंत शांति मिलती है. Giving up leads to instant everlasting peace, gives us to lasting peace, and that is what he says. The meaning of this shloka is definitely difficult to understand, but this is what our acharyas described and explained to us. So let us understand what Bhagavan is trying to tell us here. One, he says, the knowledge or the Gnan is superior to repeated practice, Abhyasa. That is the first thing he says. Then he says, meditation, Dhyana, is superior to knowledge or Gnana. And then he says, Tyaga or renunciation is superior to meditation, Dhyana. So these are the steps he has shown how one is the superior to the other. And it is important to understand, give everything into the right perspective and to put a proper meaning of every words in scriptures, how we can reconcile with the teachings or the summary or the crux of all the other scriptures. We have to put everything in the right perspective. And this is done by a scripture called Mimamsa, which tells us that there are 6 ways of defining or giving meaning to a particular shloka or particular word. And one of these 6 pramanas in the Mimamsa is called the Prakarana Pramana. Prakarana means the subject matter that we are talking about. Now in this 12th Adhyaya of Sri Gita Ji, we are talking about Bhakti Yoga, and here we are definitely talking about the Saguna Bhakti, the devotion to the form of the Lord. And this Saguna Bhakti, and that's why all the meaning that we apply here is from this Saguna Bhakti connotation, not from the Nirguna Bhakti or from the Atma Jnana connotation. And that's why knowledge, the word Jnana here, means the understanding of the Swarupa of the Lord, not Atma Jnana. It is not understanding the Atma or the Tattva or the Brahma. It is not, that is not the meaning of knowledge word here. And that's why now if we put things into perspective, now we can understand how Bhagavan says that knowledge, Jnana, is superior to repeated practice, means doing Abhyasa without understanding. And if you do Abhyasa or any practice with understanding of the Lord's name, and we do any Swadhyaya, scriptures, chanting, devotion, japa, mala, with the understanding of the Lord's, his Swarupa, then it is definitely superior. Then the second is, Dhyana is superior to Jnana, says. So, Dhyana is considered an important method in Saguna Upasana, and this must be done with the understanding of the Lord. So this is the Dhyana. And then he says the Tyaga is superior to meditation because Tyaga gives rise to instant peace. And what is understanding of the Lord? Understanding of the Lord Swarupa in the Saguna Upasana is that Bhagavana, the word itself means that Bhaga is made up of 6 Bhaga, and that Bhaga is called Bhagavana. Just like somebody who has a lot of Dhana is called Dhanavana, just like a person who has Bhaga, 6 Bhaga, and in Purna Matra, in completeness, Aishwarya, his splendor, his majesty, Yasha, his fame everywhere, Shri, all the wealth of this universe belongs to the Lord. Gnana, he is full of knowledge, complete with knowledge, he is full of Vairagya, and he is full of Dharma in complete perfection. And this is the definition of the Lord. So with this understanding, if we do all this Saguna Upasana Sadhana, then that is definitely superior to Abhyasa. And then so the difference between Saguna Bhakti and the Nirguna Bhakti is a little different. And in Saguna Bhakti, the Dhyana is considered, the meditation, contemplation of the Saguna Dhyana is considered to be a Pradhana Sadhana, important sadhana. And this meditation must be done with the understanding of the Swarupa of the Lord. Whereas in Nirguna Marg, in the formless devotion, Gnana is the Pradhana Sadhana. The self-knowledge is the main sadhana because there it leads to moksha, it leads to freedom. And all the other sadhanas are supportive or sahakari sadhana, like karma, upasana, they are all sahakari sadhana. And which one to adopt for whom depends on the suitability of the individual seeker, the adhikaritva. And in Nirguna form, Bhagavan himself has said that it is adhiktara klesha, it is more difficult, but it is only meant for the nivrutti pradhana people, those who are sannyasis type people, those who have already achieved what they wanted to from this world. They don't want to achieve anything more, and they are more secluded type of people, those who want to. But for most of the people who are pravrutti pradhan, those who are, want to achieve anything from this world, for them the Saguna Bhakti form, which is also not easy, it is also difficult, it is also having adhika klesha, but that is a much easier way from the Nirguna marg. Though these are not two exclusive marks, these are not two different marks. Actually, both the paths lead again ultimately finally to the Gnana and Moksha, that is the ultimate destination. But these are different ways of attaining the Lord, and one can take the one way or the other, and from one way one can go to the other way also. From Saguna marg also one can go to the Nirguna marg and then go to Gnana and Moksha. So these are all the ways we can lead to the Lord and attain the divinity. So summarize, Bhagavan says, mind and intellect, put it in me. If you can't do this, by repeated practice, Abhyasa Yoga. If you can't do that, then put all your actions, karma, into Ishwararpana. If you can't do that, renounce all the fruits of action, karma phala tyaga. And he says karma phala tyaga is the best of all. And he gives two reasons. One is because after renunciation or tyaga, there is instant peace. And second is all the other supportive sadhanas can only be practiced if there is a karma phala tyaga, because karma phala tyaga gives rise to kind of an equanimity of the mind, which is very essential to do the sadhana. To do all the other sadhanas, the mind has to be calm, quiet, and more focused. And then Bhagavan later on is going to describe the attributes of the wise devotee, the Gnani Bhakta Lakshana. In the next 8 shlokas, from the 13th to the 20th shloka, is going to describe the 33 attributes of a wise devotee, the Gnani Bhakta. And the devotee who is on the spiritual journey, and when he attains self-knowledge, what he becomes a Gnani Bhakta. So this kind of a Gnani Bhakta, what are his gunas, what are his lakshana? But for the enlightened wise, these attributes will come very naturally. He does not have to do any perseverance or need not do any efforts to practice. But for the seeker who is a jignasu on this path to the attainment, these gunas are very, very important, because they have to be learned, they have to be practiced, and he has to put in a lot of efforts to practice this. And they serve as a lamppost, they serve as like an ideal in the spiritual journey of the seeker. They are beautiful. And in second adhyaya also, Bhagavan in the Sthita Prajna Lakshana, he described the Lakshana of the wise, the enlightened people, those who have gone from the Karma Yoga Marg and then have achieved enlightenment or become wise, they become Gnani. And he's described the Lakshana there, Sthita Prajna. And then in the 12th adhyaya here, Bhagavan is described the Gnani Bhakta Lakshana, those who have become a devotee, Saguna Marg, and then from here they have attained the knowledge. And in the 14th adhyaya, Bhagavan is going to describe the Lakshana of Gunatita. And this Gunatita are the people who have gone from Nivrutti Marga, Gnana Marga, and then they have achieved Atma Gnana, or they have achieved the knowledge. The difference here is the path that they have taken to reach the Atma Gnana, the final destination, the knowledge, the self-knowledge. So their paths are different, but the knowledge is the same in all this. And after they have become wise and enlightened, the abhivyakti, their manifestation in the life, is different for all these three. For the karma yogi, after attaining knowledge, he may also be vyasta in a karma, he may be doing a lot of karma actions with karma yoga bhavana. For a devotee, after knowledge also, he will be involved, engrossed in devotion. And for a renunciate, after knowledge also, he will be a renunciate, and he'll live his life, he or she will live the life accordingly. So the abhivyakti of the gnana is different for different people. And an example that Guruji tells us is that, after a bout of alcohol, people become high. So the alcohol is the same, the nasha is the same, but the abhivyakti, the manifestation is different. Somebody will become very violent and becomes, abhivyakta with his physical. Somebody will talk irrelevantly, abhivyakta, or manifest with the mind. And somebody will just go to sleep and just become nivrutti, and his abhivyakti is different. So similarly, abhivyakti or manifestation is different for everyone. The gnana is the same. So the 13th shloka starts with the Gnani Bhakta Lakshana. Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankaraha samadukha sukha kshami. Adveshta sarva bhutanam, no dislike or no hatred for any being. Maitra, who befriends everyone, Karuna, one who is compassionate to all, Nirmama, who is unattached in all the actions and relations, Nirahankara, has no pride or ego for oneself, Samadukha Sukha, who is equipoised with Samatva in pain and pleasure, and who is Kshami, who forgives all, even those who cause the pain. And then Bhagavan tells us many such 33 describes a Lakshana. We will see this in greater details in the third and the final session of the 12th Adhyaya. So with this we come to the end of today's session. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parah Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.